Hello, Christopher. Hey, there you are, Ginzo. How are you?
Hello?
Hello.
Okay.
What's shaking, man? I'm gonna make you the co-host, dude.
Yep.
Make you co-host. You are now my co-host.
Awesome. I'm just going to lower this mic a little bit down. Hopefully it doesn't get into the picture.
Oh, come on, get it into the picture. Well, okay. Oh, that's great. And you know why that's pretty cool? Because see, I have my boom pole in the background,
Yeah.
and with
I
your
didn't, know, I didn't know whether you wanted that or not, like how you wanted to play that off. Because I have another mic, but I took that one out and put this one in so that I could hear my shotgun mic the
yeah,
entire time. So I don't
yeah.
know
I
if that
think I
helps
think
with
that's fine because I kind of just dressed out my set to have a few of our tools of the trade accoutrements going on here. You know, like the the Zeppelin and the Boom
yeah.
Buddy and all that, so they could see some of the tools of the trade. Um, Again, I wrote down um, our plan, which
Yes.
looks great.
Let me
Um, and I think we're going to have a fun session tonight. I was talking to my wife earlier about how we did the very first one. When we
yeah.
switched over from doing the DCBS TV to the Buzz, and
Yes.
so I thought that was pretty cool. So, well, did you have a good day today?
Yeah, just busy kid stuff. I mean, with my days mainly just at home, and then my kids are done with school. I have to watch them. Well, not watch them. They're in the house. They're just like playing Fortnite or go on YouTube or something like that because there's not really much. And occasionally, like around 5 or 6 o'clock, there's a little girl that lives down the street. She comes over and wants to play with them. They go outside, ride their bikes, and that kind of stuff. But today was just kind of like today was raining a little bit, so I don't think they didn't come
Yeah.
over because of that. And so
Right.
I can't find the document, but I think I'm just going to copy and paste the last agenda you put out so that I can at least see what you're covering. Not that I'm worried about it. I just kind of want to have it in the background somewhere.
I think it's covering the like we said, building the pole,
Yeah.
where to place it. We may or may not touch upon the audio setup for the FS5 because I don't have a good shot of the menus and stuff, but that's something that we can touch on or send out links later.
Do you have that at all in your course? Like, do you have that as um, even as a video or anything like that in your course by chance?
I used to have it when I was doing Viz 2 as a refresher for the students, but not anymore because it's pretty much irrelevant to what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
So, but hey, Christopher, how you doing? You doing good? Let me open up my chat. Gillette?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
My
How about
chat.
yourself tonight?
I'm sorry?
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Ginzo, you're doing great, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think, I'm feeling great because, we do these Zoom sessions for our class, but this one is a very special one because we get to talk about what our specialty is, and not just our specialty, but how it can really help you guys. So I'm excited. I'm excited for tonight.
And anytime we get to talk about production sound and post sound, it's always a treat.
Because of
One
course.
of my best friends is a sound engineer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where? What kind of engineer?
He does the boards and the mixing. His name's Randy Neiman. I forget his CV. When I was teaching my adulting class club last year, I had him come over on a Zoom call, and he was talking to the kids about careers in sound engineering, and went over
Okay.
his CV, but I'm too tired to remember anything. I've been
Yeah.
teaching all day online.
Oh no. Yeah, I've spent gosh, over 3 decades doing all different kinds of engineering, from studio to live to post-production. So it's quite a wide field when you say audio engineering.
He
Yeah.
does a lot of concerts,
Hmm.
and he has done in studio work.
Yeah.
More like
He did for the
more like sound reinforcement and recording arcs kind of stuff.
Like front of house kind of
Front of house.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds like it. That's
Yeah,
I've done
in
a
fact,
little
he
bit of
did
that.
all of my.
I've
Sorry.
done a little bit of live like audio for convention work. When I used to work for a company, I was like their music and live sound, from on stage mics and things like that for them. And most of my work has been production sound, or as far as, but I've dabbled outside of sound a little bit, videography and editing. I did that for a year or two for event videography, and also for the company that I worked for like 3 years. So
I spent probably about the good portion of my early career engineering records and scoring music for jingles and that sort of thing. But then when I moved down here, I focused more on post-production for film and television. And then, I've actually, believe it or not, Ginzo, I've moved out of doing post-production to just,
yeah,
production audio. I found that many of the projects, that we're approached with, you know, um, unfortunately, when you have kids, they're not the kind, and many of us work out of our homes now, are really not the kind of projects that you want to bring home. I mean, I'll just be honest. But, the post-production process is a very, very lengthy process. And, when you're working out of your house, it's like you can never get away from it.
mhm.
But I don't know how you felt, but, when we go out and do a gig and when they wrap for the night, we go home,
Oh yeah,
until the next shoot day. And that's that. So that's one of the things I like about doing production audio.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've made the threat that I would get into post production at some point. My wife says, "Does it cost less money?" Because
No,
production sound costs
unfortunately, it
so much money,
it
and she's
does
tired of
not.
me buying gear. But I said, well, I mean, in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. I mean, if you really want to be like, you want to step up into like a certain level, then yes, you have to invest. It's just like any business; you got to invest
Yeah.
in the right tools, or else
You know, you can invest every bit as much money in a production audio rig that you would in a home post production. In fact, probably even more when you get right down to like the cost of electro system for just one channel, or your boom rig, or I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
You could have $50,000 wrapped up in just wireless. So
I know guys who do. I know a lot of guys
right.
who have at least.
Right.
I know guys that, for the most part, have around $20,000 in just 4 wireless. That's just
Right.
4. That's a receiver, transmitter, mic, for 4 channels, and that's around 20. It can be around $20,000 pretty easy.
Yeah, easy. Hey, we have Aaron Gandia in the house. Welcome, Aaron. How you doing?
Good in yourself. Hold on, let me get my camera. I have my webcam on the studio computer instead of the laptop.
There we go.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Aaron. For all of you who don't know who Aaron is, he is the digital audio course director for our sister program, Media Communications, and he has been so gracious to be helping me with my class and grading, and so welcome.
Thank you.
We're gonna have a good evening tonight because it's gonna be all audio. Yay!
I saw the invite to that. I'm like, yes, I can get into this. Finally.
Finally.
Everything is multimedia in my degree, and there's no real audio, guys.
So I'm gonna teach you how to make a boom pole out of a walking stick. Are you ready for that, Aaron?
Yes.
Okay, great. So
I'm a
so
MacGyver.
yeah. I'm sorry. What'd you say, Ginzo?
A MacGyver of sorts.
You know, yes, it will be a MacGyver-esque creation.
Yeah, we like that.
Except for students, it's fine. You know, as you're learning and you don't necessarily aren't able to make an investment. But man, if I were to walk onto a set and do something like that, I would be laughed off the set. But if maybe a production truck ran over my boom pole, they would be pretty impressed if I, grabbed a roll of gaff tape and, some walking stick, so.
Yeah.
All in the what do we say, interest of recording great sound.
Yep.
So that's we're gonna have a good time. I like this. I always liked that, Ginzo, when I was teaching Viz2. That was always my favorite Zoom session to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I knew when you teach a student how to be resourceful and to not feel like they have to invest all this money, and you can say, hey, at the end of the day, nobody needs to know you used a PVC pole or a broken broom pole as long as it sounds good.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Yep.
And we might banter back and forth. Well, did you use an MKH 60? No, I use an MKH 416. Well, by the end of the day, we all have pretty good ears. But really, when you get down to it, I don't know, nor do I really care, because if I start paying attention to that, then there's something wrong with the story.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with the acting or something else.
That's notorious. I tell students all the time. It's like, we as people in our trade, we're always constant. Like if you talk to another sound person, they'll talk back and forth about what might they like better and why. But at the end of the day, if you're seeing a movie and you can't tell if they used a 416 or a 50 or a 6. I mean, you might be able to tell some nuances, but very rarely are you going to be able to tell that, because the whole thing's cut together with other pieces of audio, music, and other kinds. If you can if you sit and really paying attention to that, then you're obviously distracted from the story.
Right. And, I tell students, when you're learning to make movies, or you're learning, you're hyper critical, or you're viewing a film from a different perspective of trying to figure out how they did this shot or that shot, or how they designed this particular green screen move and composited this and that. And you really risk losing the joy of actually watching the movie, and having spent so many years making movies, it's just like, I don't want to know. I want to be entertained, and you also run the risk of, like when you're making records as well, or you got to be really careful about how analytical you get with when you're learning something, that you don't lose the joy of why we do what we do. So.
Very true. My wife is a perfect example of that. She does not listen to music with me anymore because she's put CDs on, and I just can't help pointing out everything I dislike about it, and why this, why that, I can't stand this thing, and then she's like, turns the radio off. Is like, I'm not listening to music with you anymore.
Oh my gosh!
It tend to be. I had to kind of force myself out of that mode. Because from the time that I was in school, up until even like maybe 5 or 6 years after school finished, when I was trying to get into my career, I would constantly watch movies and look for all the mistakes or look for all the things. And I had to kind of like, I think it might have been after maybe about 10 years in that I decided that, I got to start loving movies again. And I
Right.
don't want to, I think probably around the time when because I'm a comic book fan. So when comic book movies came out, I started seeing all these cool movies like Marvel were making and everything. And I was just going, yeah, I'm done with picking apart every single movie. And I'm done with like looking for everything that's wrong with it. I just really, for the rest of my life, I just want to enjoy movies now. And I
Well,
just, for me, it's still an experience. Like I still
Right.
loved going to the movie theaters, and I generally go by myself because my wife didn't want to go or nobody wanted. I'm like, nope, that's good. I'm fine. I want to enjoy it
Uh,
for me only. And
okay.
I think
Um,
that's, same goes with anything we do in our
Yep.
business.
So, not to cut you off, Ginzo, but
No,
it's
go ahead.
8:01 and we need to get started here. So, welcome everyone to the DCBS Buzz August series titled Unlocking the Secrets of Recording Great Production Dialogue. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Andrew Raut. I am the course director for Introduction to Postproduction. And tonight I have with me my co-host, Alex Ginzo. And Alex, known as, we call him Ginzo, he is the course director for Introduction to Film and Video. And tonight, together, we are the Boom Ops. Okay, we are the Boom Ops. And when we were asked and stepped up to do this session, I threw it out to my fellow course directors, and I said, well, there is a lot that we can cover with audio. But what are some of the recurring issues that you're coming up with your students, and what would you want us to cover? And unanimously, it was production dialogue, production audio, recording our actors well enough that we want to get great sounding dialogue, because we don't want to give a lot of work to our dialogue editors to clean up. So we want to record as best we can, but at the end of the day, we want very usable, good, solid sounding dialogue. So that's what Ginzo and I decided that we would focus our Zoom session tonight on. So before we really dig into it, I want to ask you guys a question, because we were talking about making movies before we started. How many of you have watched a movie with terrible audio? I mean, it was just to the point where you see this beautiful image, a really good story, but they just didn't care about the audio. They didn't put any money into it. Or I also want to ask you, how many times on your own personal projects have you struggled with recording good, usable dialogue? So you guys we can chime in on that when we get to the, we're going to throw it out a couple times throughout our session to ask questions. I want to kind of throw it to Ginzo before we move on. Ginzo, do you have any opening remarks before we dig into the fun stuff?
Just, I don't know if how deep we're going into backgrounds and stuff, but my background basically is production sound. From about roughly around 94 is when I first started out. And so I've been pretty much doing production sound, and I've done some live sound throughout my career up until, I still do to this day as much as we have work. But I think one of the things that just we got to remember when you're making your projects, first, remember that sound is just as important as visual. I know it seems like some people might think it's the other way around. yes, we want to see, obviously want to see something going on. Obviously, we want to see a very good image. We want to see a very well composed image. But if you're watching a movie that has actors and they're speaking, that's kind of the criteria there. Even so, some sort of music is going to still want to be holding in, or some sort of sound is going to be want to hold into your other sense, which is hearing and sight. And so anytime you have bad sound, it will distract you from the story. It can distract you from the story. And then you've just lost the whole point of this thing, which is making content for you to watch. So it is really just as important, even if you're not necessarily going to become a production sound mixer. I think it's really important as a content creator to make sure you know what you're looking for, what you want your audience to hear and see and relate to, just to be able to relate to in some way. So I think that's, for the most part, I think that's why we're here. We want to try to see if we can help in that situation.
Absolutely. I think that is right on target. Audio is the other half of your film. And what I don't think people realize until it's too late, that bad audio can destroy a beautiful looking image. But a beautiful, great sound can elevate even a mediocre image. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to frame our discussion on recording audio based around the gear that you have. Now, we were discussing earlier about the thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars you can spend as a production audio mixer, but that's not where we're going tonight. As you can see in my background, in my image here, I have my boom pole I use on a Boom Buddy and a Zeppelin, and we got Ginzo, and I have thousands of dollars of wireless, but that's not what we're here for tonight. We're going to show you how to use the gear that you have to overcome some of the struggles that you may have been dealing with. And when we get done, you're going to realize, oh my gosh, I never knew I could have done it that way. So the flow for tonight is I'm going to show you how to make a boom pole out of a walking stick, if you could imagine that. Then we're going to show you and have a little discussion about where you place the mic, because that is almost more crucial than the quality of the gear you're working with. If Ginzo and I have the same boom pole rig with a $1,000 Sennheiser mic and a carbon fiber pole, but if Ginzo knows where to properly place the mic, and then maybe I place it off to the shoulder or whatever, we can have the same gear but get totally different results. Or I can have a great 416 with poor mic position, but you could simply have the microphone off your FS5, and if it's in the right place, it's going to sound great. So that's what we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to open it up for questions, because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions on boom pole operation, the way we hold the pole, options, if we're just a one-man crew, what do we do? And then we're going to actually move backwards, and we're going to talk about if you have not received your camera package yet, like if you're in the early classes of DCBS and you might have gotten your iPad or you want to shoot on a phone, we're going to share a few cool hacks on how you can get great audio there. So that's what we're going to talk about from that side of things. And then we're going to, I think it's really important that you hear from us. You hear some anecdotal stories of the things that we have faced some of the more memorable moments that we faced in our career and how we approached it, because it can be everything from challenges with your gear, challenges being on location, challenges dealing with people on your crew, all this. And then finally, if you're interested in purchasing new gear, we have some thoughts on that. And then we also would suggest that before you buy anything, you reach out to us, and then we can look at your budget and maybe guide you in a direction to purchase. So I want to throw it back to you, Ginzo, while I pull a few items together, and then we'll rock on. Okay. All right.
Sure.
So
Did you want to? What topic do you want to tackle first?
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
If you want to. So let's see. Yeah, whatever. Just tell us a story. Tell us one of your.
I'll tell you a nice little anecdote of something that we talked about. Andy and I talked about. One of the things I think I learned early on in my career is, and it's going to happen to any single one of you. You're going to get a situation, you might going to shoot and you think things are going great, and all of a sudden one thing happens, another thing happens, and then all of a sudden the flop sweats happen, and you're realizing, oh my gosh, I'm panicking here. Why aren't things working? It's the never let them see you sweat kind of situation. Hopefully that happens. Hopefully that happens versus the opposite. But I remember there was a time when I was first starting out. I think it was like 97. It was literally about maybe a month or two after I finished my film program. And I had the opportunity to work on a short film with a friend of mine who was in my class. And I remember him telling me he had seen me in class a lot, panic on certain situations, because I was so like, I needed this to work and this wasn't working. Maybe like a piece of gear went down or something like that. And one of the things he told me was that he was learning from other veteran people in our industry is that if you let them see you sweat, you let them see you panic, that's worse than you actually panicking. Like that part, you cannot. It's very difficult to gain trust from people that are hiring you, especially when they're paying you money. If you're panicking because they think, oh no, what's going to happen? How is this going to affect the rest of the shoot? We went to the first day. I remember back then before digital recording, digital recorders became what they are now. They were transitioning from analog to digital by using what's called RDAT, which is recordable digital audio tape. It was like a cassette tape, and it had, it did put digital encoding in it, but it was basically a magnetic tape. So it's kind of in the interim. And these things, like when you take them from inside your cold AC car out to the humidity of Florida, they can create moisture or dew.
Ginzo,
Yes.
I have one.
Oh, you have one.
I actually have one.
Wow, I haven't seen one of those in so long.
There's a lot of stuff.
I love those recorders, by the way. I think they were awesome. They obviously don't serve as much of a purpose as they do as digital today, but like I still think they're incredible.
Yep.
They have a limited space, so that's the thing that's not so great about it.
Right.
But it was it's called an HHB Portadat with time code. So I was using this as my main recorder. I was kind of doing a one-man band kind of thing. It was such a small crew. So we got out of the car. I turned it on. All of a sudden, it would say DEW, do. Just
oh man!
You can't do anything. You can't press a button. And my friend comes over, Mark Walpole. He was still a good friend of mine. He's a camera guy, and he comes over. He goes, "Hey, everything okay?" And I go, "Yeah, the dew sensor went on. That's because we went from AC to cold AC to the humidity outside, and so it just got to acclimate to the temperature." And he's like, "All right, no problem." So what he did was he basically buffered the situation by saying, "We're gonna need at least an hour to or 2 hours to he said this, and he started making up a whole bunch of stuff, saying it was gonna take longer. But I didn't really need. I mean, at the time, I was kind of a little bit like in my body was a little, okay, please work, don't have a problem. And literally about 5 minutes to 10 minutes in, I think maybe 5 minutes in, it was very quick. All of a sudden, the whole thing lights up and it's working. and it's just in the back.
So, so you kept your cool through all this?
I did. Luckily, he was telling me not. My friend was telling me, like, it's all good, it's all good. Don't worry
But
about it."
I have a question. Did you wear any particular deodorant where people couldn't see you sweat?
Pretty sure I wore deodorant that day, and I'm very good about wearing deodorant all the time, no matter what.
That's
I'll turn the
good.
car. If I leave the house and I may have forgotten, even if I'm late one day to work, it's because I probably turned around and go back. Or
Well,
I would buy deodorant.
Guys, for all of you who aren't as old as me or Ginzo, that was a deodorant commercial. Never let them see you sweat.
Right.
So you use a particular deodorant. Okay.
So the moral of the whole thing was, that basically the thing is to remember that if you can't show confidence, or you can't show that everything's going to be fine, they won't be able to feel like it's fine.
Right.
So sometimes you have to kind of just make a nice, no, it's going to be positive. No, this happened, but don't worry. We're going to be rolling in just a second. Just kind of like give your crew the ability to go do something else while that works. Because in our business, we don't throw up our hands and say we're not working.
Nope.
A teacher of mine,
we don't walk off
and I'll
set.
say this one thing, and then we can move on. A teacher of mine from film school told me a great quote, a great thing that I always try to remember. We're not just filmmakers; we're called solution makers, because we never sit in a situation. We might plan a whole shoot to work a certain way, and sometimes they just don't work that way. We plan it, but we have to know how to adapt and overcome and troubleshoot on the spot.
Yeah, I have an amazing story along those lines that we'll share in a minute. But we got to get back to building a boom pole.
Sure.
Okay, so all right, so I have with me this wonderful walking stick that I've had, for years, that I've dragged around with me, and I'm going to use this. So while Ginzo was giving you his sweating story, I went to the FS 700 that's in the background. You can see that clip open. There's a clip on your FS5 where you can take the microphone off the camera. So what we're going to do is this is super duper easy. I'm going to take this microphone and I'm literally going to tape it at roughly about 120-degree angle. We don't want it 90 degrees because that won't give us any real way to position the microphone, because once we tape it, it's actually locked down, as opposed to if you look in the back on my boom pole, we have mounts that we can move depending on where we are positioned in relation to the talent. We can pull our pole back, we can angle it, but you don't have that with this. So all I'm going to do, and I'm going to use some white gaff tape here so you can see what's going on. I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to take my microphone here, and don't worry, the gaff tape is not going to hurt it. So we're going to do this, and we're going to tape it around like so, and voila. I have taped my microphone to the pole. And if you notice that because I taped it at an angle, when I move the pole, it changes where I can position it. I can raise it up above the frame line, which Ginzo is going to talk about with mic position. I can raise it up. I can, if I have an actor over here, I have to mic, and then there's another dialogue coming up, I can rotate it and get the other actor. But this gives us, when we're talking about holding the pole, this gives us a lot more control. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm simply, wait for it. I'm going to take that 25-foot XLR cable that I got in my package, and I'm going to attach it, and I'm simply going to wrap it around the pole. And believe it or not, that's what we used to do before the real professional poles were internally cabled. There was nothing we could do, but I'm simply going to get some more tape, and I'm going to tape down the cable. So when we move the pole, because there's no shock mounting here, any little motion of this connector or the cable slapping against the pole will go up, and we'll hear that. And we refer to that as mic or boom pole handling noise. Okay, so then we're just going to wrap it around the end of the pole. Okay, and again, I'm going to tape it off down at the bottom. Okay, so here I've taped it off at the bottom of the pole, and voila, I have a makeshift boom pole using the microphone that was on the camera. So it is imperative when you are shooting with your FS5 and you're shooting an interview or a scene, and it's anything from a medium close-up or tighter, you need to get that microphone off the camera. And if you have to do this, do it, because if you leave the microphone, what happens is if your camera, let's say, is 6 feet away, but you've pushed in with your lens, what we see on the camera is something up close like that. Okay, but the microphone hears something different. So what we would end up hearing would be, if we left the microphone on the camera, what we'd hear would be a very washed out, distant sounding recording, when if we see someone close up on screen, we want it to sound like we're seeing it. So otherwise our brain will say, okay, something's wrong here, because you can't in post move that microphone closer. However, if you get a good position on the mic, on the talent, if for some reason you needed to put some distance in there, you can do that through reverb plugins and volume. There's stuff that you can do that way, but you can't move in. So now all I'm going to do is, if you guys can see me, I'm gonna move back.
So what Andy's doing there is plugging in to the first channel of the camera, I think is what he's doing there. That way you can now you have your audio set up for one channel, which is generally all you're gonna really need if you're doing like a—
Sorry, what did you say?
I was just explaining what you were doing over there, which is how
okay.
you're plugging into the first channel, I think. First channel of
this one
channel on the camera?
This one, with the FS5 or with the FS700, which is the one we were using before we got the 5s, the camera mic plugs into input 2 because that's the closest one. But but for me, what I do is I will plug it into input 1. Okay,
and it really doesn't really necessarily matter, but it just to be able to see it in your tracks when you go to put it onto your editing system, it'll show up at the top. If you're putting it into anything else, it goes in the bottom, so you have to get rid of everything else. But it doesn't really matter. In any case, it's one mic, and especially when you're doing one-person interview, you just need the one mono channel, and you're good. The rest can be added in afterwards in post, like your ambience, your music, and things like that. But for this particular purpose, we're trying to just make sure we get the best dialogue, the voice vocal recording.
And for when you're here at school, and you get your camera package, we don't require you, nor really can we require you to go out and purchase any additional equipment. If you want to, that's on you. So why this is so important is you have the microphone, you have the long cable. It's just like, oh, in the DCBS Zoom session, they showed me that, oh, yes, I can unclip this from the camera. Oh, I didn't even know that I could do that. Well, yeah, you can. And then just, it could be a broom pole, it could be a Swiffer pole. You could go to the hardware store and pay $10 and get a painter's pole that will extend, 6-7 feet, and just tape it and go to town. But you can use anything in the house to make a boom pole. So at this point, I'm gonna throw it back to Ginzo, and he's gonna tell you where to position that mic, because you can do this, but if you don't know where to place the microphone, it ain't gonna sound good. So Ginzo, take it away.
So Andy, what Andy's talking about is called mic placement, and for in a nutshell, you can have, like Andy said before, the most expensive equipment in the world. You can have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gear, but if you're not putting that microphone placed in the right spot when that actor speaks, you kind of bought that for nothing, or you kind of, it's not going to really help. You got to know how to use your tools, especially that microphone, and especially with shotgun microphones, they have a directionality. So the microphone I'm using right now for this purpose for my audio is up here. You can see it speaking in a little bit. I have it on a boom pole in the background here. I don't know if you can see. You can't really see it. It's on hard, but it's a 416. It's one of the workhorses of the industry. And your microphone that you have there is much like a shotgun microphone, which has a very longer pattern in the front, a little bit in the back, but it has a lot of side rejection on purpose because it needs to be able to get more of that dialogue coming out of the person's mouth. In all general purposes, you want to make sure that the end of that microphone is pointing towards what's called the solar plexus. If you can understand what the solar plexus is, on your chest, there's this little crevice right here where it's said if you hit that part with somebody, if you punch that person really hard enough, they'd lose oxygen because the solar plexus controls the diaphragm. So you always want to have it so that it's pointing. People say, why not point towards the mouth? The mouth, because that's where they're speaking. Well, if an actor moves around, they might improv their actions opposed to what they did in rehearsal, what they do in the scene. You could be set up in a way where if they just moved forward, that microphone would still have the same the same access, AXIS. And what Andy was talking about earlier when it comes to if you're changing frame sizes, but your mic is too far away and it looks like they're really close up in the scene, but the microphone sounds like it's really far away, you're going to hear more of the background and less of the person speaking. I tend to refer to this as aural perspective, AURAL. I'm going to put this in the chat box. Why won't you work? There we go. Aural perspective, not oral perspective, aural perspective, meaning it should sound the way it's seen, the way it looks like. So a good example is a lot of movies you'll see where the person is usually within a medium to a close-up, they sound pretty much perfect and you don't hear that much of the background. And not always is that some sort of lavalier. A lot of times they're just using a really good specialty mic, but they're pointing that boom pole is pointing and moving around so that whenever that person speaks, that mic, the end of the mic is moving with them. See, there's my finger at the end of the mic. So if I'm turning like this and I have the microphone pointed this way, if I go this way, I'm moving that mic over every spot, even forward or backwards. And it takes time. It really takes time to learn that. I still work on it, and I think I love booming so much more than I love mixing. I love doing everything, but that's one of my favorite times is when somebody calls me and says, "Hey, can you boom on this for me?" I'm like, "Yes, I haven't done it in so long. I'm so excited." And literally, I do get excited. I get excited, but I also feel kind of at the same time a little anxious because I'm rusty. I feel like I'm rusty, but it takes some time to learn. But for you guys, really, you don't have to worry so much about being a boom op. It's more about making sure that when especially when you're doing like things like sit-down interviews or stand-ups or anything like that, just making sure that microphone is pointed in the right direction and that it's not too far distant from your talent, and while keeping yourself out of the frame. Simple things that you can do is don't be afraid to get that microphone in frame. Like even if it's, if you're, or getting it really, 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 really close. I'm notorious for doing that. I'm pretty good about telling as soon as I get it in, I know exactly where it is when I'm booming. But for you guys, the best sound is the sound you're trying to get close to. The getting into the shot, that kind of thing is going to happen. It happens to me all the time, but it just means I'm trying to get the best sound.
You know what again, so what always scared me the most was when we were shooting on film.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Because that was the last time, that was, you didn't want to be the one responsible for blowing a shot and
Yeah.
wasting film. But now with digital and with, heaven forbid, the Adobe products where you can literally just paint out
Yeah.
the mic. On one hand, when you think about those resources, yeah, get the microphone in front. I don't even care if it's in the actor's face, because we'll just go and paint it out.
Right.
And that should never be a crutch for understanding how to use use good mic placement, because chances are your project is not going to have the money and time to implement that. So do it right. Hey, Ginzo, talk about the difference between what happens when you mic from above versus
Yes.
below, because that plays a big part in background ambience.
Yeah, I used to do a lecture back when I worked in the film side, and this was a really big thing I used to tell my students all the time. There's like pretty much 4 things that you're trying to look for when you're trying to figure out mic placement. Frame size is important. How many people are in the scene? Who's going to be talking in the scene? And what are they doing? And this is very general. Now, when that comes to mind, you also want to figure out how to approach mic placement. And generally, you always want to have, not always, but for the first thing that should be tried is getting that mic above and pointed down, pointing away from, not pointed up, obviously, because people are talking this way, not above. So the reasons why is because, first, there's a lot less stuff up top than there is in the bottom. So some people say, why can't I just go underneath and just point the mic up and I can get away from my frame line up top, and my camera guys won't get in that. Well, we do that sometimes, but you do have obstacles to that because there's more things in the way: furniture, tables, people. There's so much you're going to have to try to maneuver between when there is not as much up here. That's so much more freeing to move around. So really what you want to try to achieve is to go up top more than you want to go up underneath. Plus, there's more sounds above, like air conditioning noises and just general ambience from outside, that is going to be picked up more pointed up versus pointed down.
Right.
And that's just the basics of how a mic works. And then you have other tricks you can use, which is if we had more equipment in our business, sometimes we use combinations of microphones. We might use lavaliers with booms, lavaliers with booms, and plant mics. We might plant a separate mic somewhere. But for you guys, really, you should try to set yourself on living up here and pointing down to your talent. Obviously, there's going to be situations where that's not going to happen because of whatever the shot entails. So you may have to go below, but just keep in mind that you have to listen for all the things that are going to come out of that change of direction.
Right.
And plus,
the only time, as far as miking from below, the only time, that I've seen or experienced, there have been times, I've crawled underneath a table and stuck the mic because because it was such a long dolly shot, or it was wide and I just couldn't, and we didn't have the budget for wires.
Right.
So that's another big thing. But when you're doing news conferences, okay, yes, that's the only real acceptable place you're going to see E&G, electronic news gathering sound guys, miking from below. And that's simply because if there were 5, 6, 7, 10 camera crews covering, you have all those cameras that have to get the shot. So you can't have all these booms in there, competing. One other thing, again, so I wanted to bring up is when you're a boom op, Ginzo mentioned 4 things, but you have to understand, and he did talk about framing. You have to understand what the frame is. But you also have to pay attention to lighting. because chances are, if you're going to be booming and you don't get out on the set and stake your claim where you're going to be, chances are a grip's going to come and put a light stand there. Okay. And then you're going to be SOL, and you know, you can't create boom shadows. I can't tell you how many times I've done a gig and I think that I'm in the perfect place. Okay, I got my frame line, I know the shot, I know the blocking, and then we'll roll, and then they'll play back and say, oh, we got to do it again. There's a boom shadow on the back wall in the shot. So then I have to kind of you know, maneuver around to where I can get the mic in the same relative location and still not create a boom shadow. So one of the things, when we want to get that microphone right in front of the talent, it's advisable that you don't put your key light right above your camera. Okay, don't put your key light right above your camera, because you have what we call lit the boom up off the stage. And there won't be any place you can put that microphone where you're not going to create a shadow on their face. So that's another thing that you need to be cognizant of. Okay, so it's going on 8:30. Before we get to the iPhone and the iPad, I want to throw it out to see, you know, to ask if any of you have any questions about what we've covered so far. It would be helpful to us if you would open up your mic, or, you know, if you have to
At least
put it
your
in the
mic.
chat. Yeah, at least your mic. You don't have to open up your camera. Just open up
For us
the mic.
today, it's a radio show today, so we'd like to hear you.
Right. So are there any questions you guys might have? Anything about making the poll, placing the poll? One thing we didn't go over is, hold on, my boom pole is okay, by the way. It did fall on the ground. The one thing we didn't cover was how to hold the pole.
Yep.
And that's a really important thing. And there are a number of different ways we can do that, but when we teach it, the proper way we're going to hold it up is like so. Okay. All right. So you're going to grab your pole and you're going to hold it over your head. And if you look sideways, it's pretty much over the head like so. And that way, so when you're looking at your talent, you can look out the corner of your eye and still be able to move it. We keep our arms positioned like so. So when we're moving it, we get, you know, a full range of motion. And also you can use your feet, because there are many times when actors get really loud, we don't just leave the pole there and we don't just turn the gain down, which you won't be able to do on your FS5. So you almost have to do some mixing with the mic by changing the distance. Okay, so if you know by reading your script that the actor is going to get super loud, you know when that's coming, and then you're going to pull back. So don't be afraid to actually physically move your feet, but this is pretty much the standard. But if Ginzo and I do what's called bag work, where we will actually have the mixer recorder and the wireless, and we're doing the one-man band show. So there are many times when we have to do some mixing. And oh, Ginzo, you want to show them your bag?
I've been cleaning my stuff lately, so I don't have my recorder in there. But this is commonly used piece of gear, which is basically an ENG bag. So if you kind of can see what it looks like, it's kind of big. Right now I have some antennas on there because I use wireless and I have high gain antennas to give me more range.
Right.
But,
oh, you do.
Yeah, I have the.
So I'll show you my bag if you show me yours.
Mine, he's actually, Andy's got a great recorder in there. It's a sound devices.
633.
633, right, that's right. And I use a Zaxcom. It's called a Zaxcom Nomad 10. It's a different product, but still the same. Normally it would go in here, but I've been cleaning out some stuff and just cleaning my gear. It needed some cleaning since I was at home a lot. And this is what we would carry with a harness. So a harness basically attaches on these rings. I don't know if you can see the rings. There's a ring here. There's a ring on this side. So this is the left side. This is the right side. There's a bottom ring and top ring. So the idea is that a lot of our jobs are done one-man banding, so to speak. We're like one man. We're booming and we're mixing at the same time. Andy's got that's actually a great harness. I have a Stingray. I think I had a petrol harness at one point too.
Yeah.
So they're all used to help hold that back, because once you've got a recorder, a mixer, wireless, all kinds of stuff, it can get heavy and it's hard to really carry it around over your shoulder. So we tend to use a harness to keep it in the center part of your body so you can have your arms free to boom around if you need to. Every once in a while, you hold it with one hand, adjust your level quickly, and then just go over and move around. And a lot of times, like Andy was saying, to avoid those high peaks, you can pull your mic back slightly, so that way the farther you are away, the less level they're going to get. But that's kind of a way to avoid those high peaks.
And guys, you can still do the same boom. You can do the same boom holding position with your makeshift boom that we just showed you with our poles. So that is a concept. It's not obviously exclusive to the poles. So those are the things for booming.
This all relates a lot to mic placement, which is key. It's very key that you get that proper mic placement, or you can have some sound issues that are hard to fix later.
So Amy has a question. So what would you recommend for a student doing a one-man band as far as film and directing and booming? What kind of project are we talking about? Yes, I would. Yes, thanks, Wade. I would definitely say a boom stand.
Yep.
That one that you see on the lighting stand, that, believe it or not, was from B&H. But when you really look at it closely, it's a fishing pole bracket. You can go to the fishing department of Walmart and buy that same one for $6. The only difference is the one you buy from Walmart has threads on it, because you would be bolting it to a boat or something. But it's the same diameter, and you could just drop it into what do we call that mount that's on the top? Max. It's okay.
You mean for the C-stand?
Yeah.
It's a oh my gosh, you got me.
Sorry.
As soon as you said that, it went gone.
Okay.
But yeah, you're talking about the top knuckle, the top.
Yeah, yeah.
I have one as well.
Right.
Yeah, you put it. It's what Andy's talking about. I have two of those. I bought mine at Walmart. I didn't need to buy them at B&H. It's like about twice as much. But B&H does have a different brand, a different type. Like, I'm not sure if the metal's the same. I think it is the same. Regardless, though, literally $6 to $7 I see it at Walmart.
Right.
I got two of them because there are times I need two boom poles.
Right. Oh yeah. So Amy, that's if it's a sit-down interview, or if it's seen that you're, the person isn't, the actor or talent isn't moving around. I use the Boom Buddy all the time.
Me too. Yep.
There's no virtue in holding a boom pole up for 5-7 minutes if you don't have to. So, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend Nestor. Hey Nestor, great to see you again.
Riphead.
Hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
So let's move on, Ginzo. Let's move on to the shooting on an iPhone or an iPad. This is going to be pretty quick, because if you were just shooting with your phone, and I, believe it or not, use a trusty 8 Plus, it looks fantastic and it sounds really good. The one thing you're going to have to consider if you are just using the microphone on the camera is, unfortunately, you're going to have to get the camera as close to the talent as you can. Just again, remember that distance of the microphone to the talent. We have to close that distance as much as we can. And the only way we can do it with just the phone is like that. And then we can only zoom out so much to compensate from a framing how far we pushed in. Now, the hack of the day, if you will, if you have a pair of earbuds, that has a microphone on it, you could literally use that as a quasi lav that you could hide. Okay. However, you're obviously not going to be able to use your phone to shoot on, because you'll have to put that one in your pocket. So what we're now having to deal with, if you go down that road, we have to do what's called a double system. And we do that all the time, because when Ginzo and I are out shooting audio, we're no longer cabled to the camera like we used to be back in the day. They're going to have their onboard camera mic running, and then we will be recording the actual audio. And through this trusty thing right here, we can sync up when we give them the files, provided our sample rate and our bit depth is all the same, time code that we're recording is the same. It's easy to sync that up. So that Mike Hanley, who's with us, was telling us the other day he was in Europe and did that very same thing with great results. So now, with that being said, if you want to really build out an audio rig for your phone or your iPad, there are a number of interfaces, lightning interfaces out there that you can hook to your phone and be able to hook in a boom and possibly a wireless system. And then, of course, record the audio on that and do a double system. They range, oh gosh, they range anywhere from, $75 to maybe a couple hundred, depending on which interface you use. So you can go that route. So,
Andy, they have actually some on Amazon as low as $25 to $30.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
They have these lavaliers and they sell these adapters that go from the 1/8 inch to lightning, goes right into your phone, say for instance, and you can actually download. There are the one that I've noticed from a long time ago. I haven't really gone and back to research a lot of it, but Raut makes a great app. It's a recorder app. It's a digital recorder app. So essentially what you would do is you plug in the microphone, take the phone, turn on the recorder in the app, put your phone in, let's say, in a person's pocket or whatever, and run that cable of the microphone, and you could easily hide it in someone's shirt. Now, it's not going to be the same quality as the microphones Andy and I use, but you can easily get away with something for an interview or for a documentary. You can even, for documentaries and interviews, a lot of times we still keep that mic flipped out. We might still have it in there, but just dress it nice so that the cable isn't all over the place. But you just need a small microphone, and that's totally fine. If it's narrative, you'll have to hide it because obviously we don't want people to see microphones. But you could easily get away with a mobile recording, so to speak, take that audio clip later and put it back into your film, just match it from the on-camera mic. Adobe actually has what used to be called pluralize. Now it's just part of their system, where it sees the wavelength off the microphone from the camera, the same recording that you got on your phone, and matches it instantly without need of a slate.
Right. So,
but there's ways around that.
So let's move on to some questions regarding
someone had a question,
recording on
Andy.
iPhones.
that I saw there. I think it was Vincent
Hey
Young.
guys, just let you know,
Okay.
somebody was asking about, you keep mentioning iPhone all the time, but they were asking about Android. So
Okay,
what
yeah,
was
they're
that
available
Android?
on
Oh
Android.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
they are. Sure.
Yep.
I don't know the apps for that one, but there are a few that people have told me that, and I think Rode might even have one that's for both platforms. So I don't know for sure, but they're very much able to do on either Android or Mac. There's so many capabilities. You may have to do some research on looking for that. But a lot of the gear, I've looked on it for myself just out of curiosity to see how it would work. And places like Amazon, B&H, I mean, there's places all around that sell these microphones that can easily be used.
So Vincent has a question
Yeah.
about using multiple mics, and Vincent, you use your iPad. Your question is about the iPad had the best audio. What are you, first off, what are you using to get the audio into your iPad? Because the reason I ask you that, that's what we refer to as signal flow. And when, I mean, that's for a later Zoom. But when we talk about signal flow, it goes, the signal is converted at the microphone, and then it then has to go to some form of mic preamp, which boosts the signal, and that has quality issues there. And then your iPad is essentially the recorder. So to best answer that, what are you comparing the iPad audio to? Do you want to share that? If not, that's okay. All right.
But I think one of the questions Andy he was asking was, he uses an iPad, and is that a good practice? Well, I mean, sure. I mean, if you have, it can be. It depends.
Yeah.
Like I think what Andy's trying to say is, it depends on what you're connecting, where that really what it takes place is, where is that iPad in close proximity to your talent? If it's really far away, then of course that microphone that's on there is picking mostly ambience and less of the person. The closer you can get to that person, and if you can use it as a separate microphone, you have much more ability to bring it in closer, because it doesn't have to be on camera. You're not going to see it, not going to worry about it. And so the whole, yes.
Yeah, what I actually do is I use it as like a prop in the scene. Like, I'm notorious for hiding things in the scene and make it look like a prop. And
I was about to ask if that's what I had something in my,
So
I don't know if I should mention that, but I have seen, we've seen this, Andy and I have seen the same kind of thing in movies and TV, especially TV. Every time you see a court drama thing, and the person's on the stand, what do you think is on their, the stand for the witness stand?
Right.
What do you think is on there? That microphone that's on there is one of our microphones.
The real mic.
Half the time I go, that's a 50. There's an 80, Sennheiser 8040. And it's usually like, you can tell it's not, we know it just because we know microphones. But a lot of times that's exactly what they did, is they just decided to put the microphone, they use it as a, what's it called? What's the term I'm trying to use? Not a prop, but a
plant mic?
Well, plant mic, but more about a practical. That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Practical, meaning like when you use a practical lighting, they're using an actual light in the scene, but they're using that for lighting purposes as well as the lighting outside of the scene.
Right. Yeah.
So practical mic, but we know they're using that as well to get recording out of it. That's a live microphone, even though they're using it as a prop in the scene. And yes, that's totally a very good way of getting good audio, just by putting it in the movie, and you got that mic as close as possible. I totally.
Hey, well, you know what? Hearing you guys say that it's a good idea makes me feel that much better about doing it. So thank you.
Sure. If it can make the scene, I mean, why not?
I've heard some great sounding audio coming from a phone or an iPad.
Right.
Hey, guys, Ginzo, Andy, I couldn't find anything from Rode on Android, but Shure does make an app that is get high ratings on there. So
cool.
They're a known
Sure,
company. Also, take a look. The app I found, and this is just me doing a search, was Shure Plus Motive, MOTIV. So I would just, it's from Shure Incorporated. So it is something that the company's making. So if you want to just mention the Shure mic, just to let them know it's a good company.
Cool.
But they have the app
Sure
for the
Motive
Android.
has some. I remember reading about this. They have a bunch of product. It's a product line of mobile recording. It's a mobile app, but they also have microphones and a line of stuff. Shure Plus by Shure, which is an incredible company. They've been around forever.
Well, cool.
And
So
whenever you get to port 2, you'll see some videos where we use the Shure podcast microphones for that stuff. So Full Sail relies on it also.
great. Well, we're kind of running short on some time here, but I'm gonna give my little anecdotal story because we've covered a lot of technique, a lot of technical stuff. So I just want to share a little story. My career has spanned over 35 years, and I've had so many different kinds of clients I've worked for and projects. But there was this director cinematographer who I wanted to work with forever. I've seen his work. I loved it, and we eventually started talking, and he says to me, the reason I didn't ask you is because I didn't think you'd ever want to work on a project with me. And I said, dude, you're crazy. So, okay, so fast forward, we finally get our first project to work together. And I was so excited. And when we're teaching about production audio, there are a lot of contaminants that we deal with on set. A contaminant is anything in the environment that is going to make our production audio unusable. Okay, so I get to the gig, and it was a 3 location company move in one day. Okay, and if you know anything about a company move, that's where the company gets there, unloads, sets up, does the scene, tears down, packs up, goes to another location and does the same thing. Okay, so the first location, we were shooting probably about maybe 50 yards from a major thoroughfare, and we didn't get our first shot off until what was rush hour. And it's just like, that's going to propose a little problem. So to add insult to injury, there was, in the park we were shooting, there were speakers, between the park benches where we were shooting. So what happened was they were told that someone would be there from facilities to turn the music off. Well, the only person who could was in Cancun vacationing. So I'm stuffing towels and all this to dampen as much as I could the music. And then there were probably about 25 yards off to the right were 2 city people on a big lift putting Christmas lights around a palm tree. So I'm everything that could go wrong at that location did. I was just simply dead in the water. So back to when Ginzo was talking about how we're problem solvers. So I had to think, okay, I'm not going to diva out because that would not have served any purpose. So I said, okay, the lines that the actors were speaking were very short. So I said, okay, let's go grab the talent, one of the producers, let's go into the producer's truck and get wild lines. Ginzo and I were going to talk about wild lines, and wild lines are different from ADR because you're not watching the performance. They're just wild. So it was super quiet in there. The actors were still in their character. They knew their motivation. So bam, we knocked them out in Spanish and in English. And believe it or not, they sunk up beautifully. Okay, so problem solved. The next company move was to a coffee shop that they had not closed off for business. And so we were literally shooting around patrons coming in and ordering coffee. So here we're delivering lines, and you have an espresso maker going off. You have refrigeration in the back, which they wouldn't turn off. Okay, so what do you do with that? Okay, so then luckily the lines we got were in the clear of anything. So third company move, we go out to a park, and because we needed to shoot a basketball scene. Okay, once again, rush hour on the way home, and that park was over the flight path of Sanford Airport. It's just like, could my day have gotten any worse? If it wasn't for the fact that the crew was wonderful, it was the best crew I have ever worked with. It was small. They knew my challenges. They bled for me because they knew whatever I tried to do, I couldn't deal with it. So what happened was they were so gracious, and they were so like, gosh, I hope he works with us again. And I went up to the guy and said, look, man, this wasn't your problem. You know, whatever was right for the story, that's what we had to get, and we just have to solve the problem. And without throwing attitude and just working hard and say, you know, yeah, this isn't the most optimum situation, but we're going to make the best of it. And it turned out it resulted in award-winning commercials. You know, all because we knew we had a job to do, and we just went and did it. You know, I didn't throw my boom pole on the ground and say, I'm done, I'm going home. I'm taking my marbles and going home. No, you can't do that. And you have to make lemonade out of lemons, and that's what I had to deal with. So, you know, we talk about these contaminants all the time, and you're just going to have to deal with it, but you have to keep a very positive, we're going to get through this, and then we'll do a post-mortem, you know, on what went wrong or whatever. But we've done it so many times, we don't even have to do that anymore. But
and the biggest thing to take away from that too, if I can interrupt, Andy.
Yeah.
The thing about not being able to say I'm done, go away. It's really the reason. The biggest reason is because money has been spent, and there's no way to get it back until after this whole thing's done. So they're paying you to be there. If for some reason, let's say the producer showed up, and I had this happen to me where I walked in. One time I went and did a shoot at a golf course. I show up and it's torrentious downpour, and the whole thing's outside, and there's no cover location because there's nothing to do except to shoot outside. That's all they had planned for. That's the whole thing. I ended up not doing the shoot that day. I came out with an umbrella and said, hey, are we shooting today? Because it's like monsoon out here. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. Just invoice me. We'll do it another day or something. I never got called back, but I got paid for it anyway because my day was taken. So you got to remember that when we're doing a shoot like this, or if we put out money to rent gear or to get a space or what have you, you know, there's really no choice but to kind of move forward or shoot something else, and then we'll go back to it or something. It's just part of our game because all of that money has been spent. Stuff has been rented. You can't return and say, I didn't use it, so can I get my money back? It doesn't work that way. So you got to be in the mode of, well, what are we going to do to solve this? It has to be solved. It's solvable. It's all solvable. And for the most part, what you guys are doing, you don't have to worry about so much about budgetary money for the most part for your projects, for your student projects, but still, you got to get in the mindset of, okay, this is solvable. There is no reason why I can't move forward. We may not get to do what we wanted to do, but we're going to have to find a new plan, an A, B, C, D scenario plan, whatever that is, you know, plan of attack, and then just go do it. You know, we'll figure something out. We'll make it work.
Right. So, do you guys have any questions? I'm gonna open it up for questions.
We had a question about somebody asking, why didn't you get called back, Ginzo?
What's that? For that, it could be for a lot of there's a lot of jobs I get that are from out of town. They don't necessarily live here. They're from New York, wherever. And it could have very much been that they postponed it and decided to do somewhere else. So they wouldn't necessarily hire me. They'd hire somebody local in that area. Could also have been, I never heard back from them. I just, you know, it was like, you know, a supposed job I was going to do, got paid for it. But you know, for me, it's like, well, I got paid anyway. I did, my attempt was there. It's not my fault the weather changed it. But it could have been a variety of reasons. Could have been that they decided not to, they cut the shoot completely. You know, that it might have happened. Or they decided to go another avenue, meaning they might go to another location instead, or budgetary might have changed. You know, they might have said, well,
Right.
we can hire all you guys, we'll get some PA to do it or something. It could be a variety of reasons.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean, because I didn't get a chance to show them anything. So it wasn't like I did anything bad. It's just I showed up to the shoot and it's a monsoon outside, so we can't shoot. That's one of those unavoidable things you can. That's like the most. That's like the only avoidable way to not shoot something is physically. Like there's no way to
Right.
physically do it. But really, on them, what they should have had was a cover location, someplace where they could have gone to shoot other parts of it while we wait for the rain or see if the weather holds, or shoot another day.
To make the most of their day.
Yeah.
Hey, Milton Foster. Hey, Milton, you have a question about isotope. I love isotope. I have it.
Wish I
we
did.
we use it all the time. Isotope RX Advanced. We use it a lot for dialogue cleanup. To be perfectly honest, you know, in post-production, that's what we're doing. And isotope is such an amazing product. It's so, the algorithms are so amazing that they have literally reduced the amount of ADR work that we have to do. For example, a lot of the ADR, or a lot of the audio in what is it? What was the catch? What, Dangerous Catch? What was that TV show where they were?
Yeah, dangerous catch.
Okay,
I mean,
because
the
Deadliest catch.
crab show, the crab fisherman show.
Catch.
okay,
Deadliest catch.
Deadliest
Thank you.
catch.
Yes,
Deadliest Catch. I was thinking,
I
I knew
used to
that.
watch that religiously.
Right.
Yeah.
So because so much of the audio was shot, you know, out on the deck, and you know they were in such extreme conditions. Back in the day, we would have had to do ADR, but because that's all reality, you know, you really can't ADR reality. You know, so much of that show was salvaged through using RX. So it is the industry standard. If you can get it, I would suggest that you get it. There's the RX, the RX standard and the RX advanced. There, I do know they have an educational discount. Okay, so if you can get it, I strongly urge you, if you have designs on doing audio post. I will say this, they wrote the algorithm for the spectral analysis and repair parts of Adobe Audition. So there are some very robust audio restoration capabilities in Audition. So I would suggest you look to that first before you drop the money into RX, because RX there is a learning curve to it, but it is amazing. So it's worth the investment in time. Any other questions?
I want that software so bad.
They asked what ADR means.
ADR, Ginzo, what's ADR?
Automated dialogue replacement.
And describe what it is.
So basically,
Describe the
what
process.
It is, yeah, it's a process that's done throughout any major motion picture, TV show, you name it. It's done a lot. It's not the most ideal situation. You know, ideally, we want the best dialogue from set because we already paid the actor to say those lines. So why bring them back in? But basically, essentially, is you're bringing the actor or the talent, whoever was, whatever kind of project it is, that was reciting the lines, and they bring it back into a post facility, and they go back and re-record while they're watching themselves on camera. So they have to kind of watch it, hear what they were saying, try to mimic back the same motivation, and then they get like, I think they do like, probably like, what's it called? Q beeps? Not Q beeps.
Yeah, you'll either get a Q beep or a streamer before you start to read the lines.
They know they can get a moment to catch themselves. They can try to say the line at the same moment, on sync with what they were saying on camera. Again, it's not that it's and there's pros and cons to it because, well, if you have unusable audio, you just had no way to get that good audio. This is the only thing you can do afterwards. You could do something like wild lines, which do help better because at least the ambience is still there, and they might still have their energy from that same motivation from the whatever they were doing at that moment, whether it's commercial, narrative, whatever. But in ADR, it'll be several a time period will pass, and they're not going to have that fresh in their memory and fresh in their energy. So they're trying to fake it, and it can sound fake. So.
Right. Yeah. They don't, many actors don't like it because when they rap, they want to go home, or by the time you get around to doing ADR, they're on to another project. So they're not even in the same motivation. So when an actor is not available, if you watch the closing credits, there will be a fairly decent section for ADR, and believe it or not, there's ADR casting where they will find voice actors that sound like the original actor to come in and do the
I've heard of them bringing comedians that can do a great impression and just do that actor's impression as an ADR to fix something, or if they want to fix something for TV when they have profanity or something like that, they'll just have that actor or that comedian do the same voice, like the actor's voice that it can, like if it's a Nicolas Cage or whatever, and redo it. I've heard some stories of that because the actor wasn't available.
Now, what has been, I don't even want to say trending, but what big productions will do is they'll bring an ADR booth on stage. Yeah. On another part of the sound stage. And because we're shooting digital, or we'll have a digital output from a film camera, but the digital will go to the DIT. And then if there are any noted scenes, the footage will be available instantaneous that they can network over to our makeshift ADR stage, and then they'll just drag the actor right over there. Come on, we got to fix this now. And that's great because the actor is there and they're in character and they could just read the lines. So you see that a lot on larger budget films. So
we had that on Safe Harbor, which basically it was a pro. It was a great. I loved seeing it. I loved what he was doing. But then towards the end of my time that I was there, they cut me about 2 weeks early because they made him the utility, and they said we can save some money by making a utility and having him do ADR when he wasn't doing utility. So I was cut early from the show.
Oh, really?
But it was like my very first show or anything. Like literally, I was 6 months out of school. So I was like, well, I'm humble. Like, yeah, I got the opportunity to work on a TV show. What do I care? So it was not great to be cut early from the show, but it was a budgetary thing. It wasn't because I wasn't, they were just looking to save money, cut corners, so to speak. But it was cool. They had a big setup there. I remember in the same sound stages that we were building the interior sets.
All right.
Was there any more questions?
I was answering DIT and ADR because
DIT and ADR. Digital
DIT
info
is something
tech.
that's kind of come in the last, I don't know, to 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, when we started using Reds and Aries and where we were shooting.
Yeah, they're more referred to lookup tables now on a lot of the stuff for post.
Yeah. Any other?
I've been trying to throw out some of the questions to you. Most of them have been commenting on some of the stuff. I love the ones somebody came up with the answer that the main plot of Singing in the Rain is about the invention of ADR.
Oh, yeah, in the plant mic scene.
I just can't stand it.
What is it? Racing with the Say that again. Which movie is it?
Singing in the Rain.
Oh, Singing in the Rain.
And then I love one reference we had. I think her name's pronounced Joliet. She said about basically what's ADR? Milli Vanilli.
Milli Vanilli. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can rip a little bit of that.
Lip syncing.
If you want to see like I think Andy can tell you, whenever we watch movies and we see little things that they use for audio purposes, say for instance, like a police interrogation scene, you'll see a recorder there. And we're like, I know that's not for that, you know. But
Oh,
they're using
what
it
is
for
what is worse is when it's some sci-fi movie, you know, an older sci-fi movie, and you know, it's like, oh, you know, in Star Wars, when the Death Star finally is operational, and the character is pushing the T-bar up.
Yeah.
You know that scene. I look at it and said, man, that's a Grass Valley TV switcher they dropped in there as a prop.
Yep.
You know, you'll notice all these antiquated, or all these pieces of gear that, you know, we don't even use anymore, but they've used them as a prop.
That I learned that I didn't know until I went to film school. Our teacher actually pointed it out. Our audio teacher pointed out, like, when you use the 816 that John Travolta holds in Blowout, when he's moving around and there's no windscreen, nothing on it, but it sounds perfect. It's like, that's not how it would sound. You'd have a whole bunch of wind going in there, and it would sound like, but he's holding it and without a, just in his hand, not a shock mount, not anything, just holding it.
He's just doing he's just doing this.
Yeah, basically.
Oh my gosh.
It's great. It's in the first part of the movie where he records the accident happening, and that's where it's a thriller. So it's a really great movie, but it's like, it's a Sal man's like pet peeve when you watch it, like, oh my God, come on. It doesn't work that way. I've seen it so many movies where you're like, the average person isn't going to know that. Like, they just think it's cool looking. And it is, you know, if you can take the veil off of reality for a moment, it does look cool. But, you know, but you watch it as a sound person, you're like, it doesn't do that. But that's
okay,
you think,
guys, this is a 416, and it's about a foot long. Okay, an 816, the bigger brother, is like, what, maybe at least 2 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can imagine, see this in the background here, that's what we call a windshield or a Zeppelin. Okay, and that one is for a 416, and that thing is this long. I mean, it's almost 18 inches long. So imagine if you were to have recorded this the right way with an 816, you would have a Zeppelin that was 2 feet long. And we've seen them. I mean, you can get, for that one, you can get little extender sections to turn it into one. But
it's heavy too, heavy.
Oh, it is incredibly heavy.
For, like, you know,
oh my
12 minutes
gosh.
or so, your arms are killing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we could go on, Ginzo.
No, I was going to say, like, that what you were saying out there, I can tell you why it gets heavy. Well, I can tell you that I know from experience how heavy it gets. I had to do a shoot where it was we were shooting for a called The Gulp. It's a fishing lure commercial, and the scene is basically, the whole thing is done on a boat. So the fishermen are on a boat and talking about why they would use the Gulp for fishing. They're actually what they call anglers. They're professional fishermen, and I had to learn this that day. And the whole scene, the person is supposed to be nude, but he's not really nude. He's got like a Speedo bikini, tan Speedo, and they're going to just paint it out later. But every time he'd stand up, he'd hold a big giant bass to cover everything that you don't need to see.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So my dilemma, there's a boat, you know, kind of moving around on shore, like near shore. There's a pier, there's a dock next to the boat, but of course the boat goes back and forth. So I can't boom overhead, and I don't have a pole long enough to get to the talent. So I start seeing the camera crew, they're putting tripods in the water and putting the camera on there. They're shooting on 16 millimeter and I believe also 35 millimeter for some reason. They're shooting
out in the water. I hope they were insured.
Like close to the shore, but yeah. Oh yeah, no, actually somebody dropped the Microforce in the water. I saw them do it, and they had picked it back up and it was all wet, and he had to go get another one because it basically mopped it up with water. But I had to get into the drink with a rope, like I fashioned some sash line over my shoulder like this, and wireless, because the guy the setup I was using, he didn't have a butt plug. He used a plug-on transmitter. He had a just a regular transmitter with a cable. So I had to put it all here to keep it above, and I had to keep the water like right here. So I got
Oh my
in the
gosh.
water and boomed the entire time with a full extension out, full extension, mic in the front with a Zeppelin. And anytime I had to, stop it when they cut the scene, I had to swing it all the way over, put it over my shoulder like this, and keep the back end out of the water.
Because it was so heavy.
It was heavy. Oh yeah, at
Man.
that day my arms were killing me. I had
Do you have pictures?
no, unfortunately. I don't. I'm so mad that I don't, because back then I wasn't taking pictures. We didn't have it was still early in the cell phone days.
It's Nestor.
How can you try to take a selfie? Come on, what kind of question is that, Andy? Like, is he going to try to take a selfie with that long ass pole and then fall into the water? Then his phone would fall into the water? I mean, come on, Andy.
I was.
Yeah, I attached my
selfie sticks.
Yeah,
I attach my cell phone to my boom so I can I can film myself while I'm booming.
I would have. I don't think I even had a cell phone. No, I had a cell phone, but back I was still in the day of flip phones. So I didn't really have anything that was. It's just one of those situations where I didn't know it was going to be until I got there. There was the guy that I was working with. I work with all the time. You might even know him. I think it was a singer. You know him, Andy. Singer. Senger. Jethro Singer.
Okay.
You remember him?
Yep.
No? Okay. So I worked with him on that. Yeah.
So
enough where I could have seen you doing a selfie. You could have pulled it off.
Maybe,
You could have pulled it off.
I just didn't
I
have
know
the
you didn't
phone
have
for
it then, but I know you well enough to know you would have figured out a way to do it.
Oh, now I could. Yeah. Back
Yeah,
then
exactly.
Yeah. No. Back then I was just glad to have a gig, and I was glad that my arms weren't giving out during the shoot, because every time they cut, I literally had to swing that over. And that was another situation when mic placement was really critical, because I only had a small margin to move that boom up, or it was going to go into the water. And I did not get into the water once. I got it. You know how we have on your camera, you have title safe and you have picture safe. Well, I was constantly in the title safe, but it wasn't constantly in the picture safe, but not in the, I was still out enough to where they were cutting that out of the movie anyway. But he kept telling me on my cans, my headphones, hey, try not to get so close into the frame. I'm like, excuse me, this is hard to do from where I'm at. So don't worry, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
So Roger, are we like, Bill and Ted Returns, Andy and Ginzo's Great Boom Adventure?
It could have
Okay.
been the bogus
one
journey,
heck of a
but I think it's
podcast
more
if you
Face
say
the
that.
Music is what it is, guys. It's
my
the
gosh.
current one. It's the one that's opening. This was
Right.
Ginzo and Andy Face the Music.
Oh my gosh.
You were saying we're-
But we do have, Ginzo and I do have fun doing this.
Oh yeah. I do. I can talk about sound stuff forever. Like anybody that knows us, or if there's another colleague that we have at Full Sail that's a sound person, as soon as we get together, it's like, oh, have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? And it's like a little gossip circle about sound, just products and stuff like that. So yeah, constantly.
So we love it. So, we are getting to almost 9:30, so well over our allotted time. So we're going to take one more question. So, and then we're gonna sign off. And Michael, this is all archived, correct?
Well, it says you've been recording. Who started the recording? Andy or Ginzo?
No, I'm recording it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
But it's archived on our DCBS.
yeah. Where did you record it to? To the cloud or to?
Yeah, I recorded it to the cloud.
Okay, all you have to do is once it's done, grab the file, and then it should be able to be uploaded probably and closed captioned by one of our work studies, something like that.
Okay,
once it's
fantastic.
File, you can drop it to Geo.
Great. That sounds awesome. So yeah. I keep trying to watch the chat here. We'll do it again. We at some point, I'm sure. We've talked about this many times, Ginzo and I. Well, what would our next installment be? probably maybe something on wireless. But if you guys have any suggestions on what
Yeah.
you would like to have us talk about, it can be wireless, it can be rigs, it can be post-production audio. We have a lot of wonderful, great instructors who would, I'm sure, love to do this with us. One of your instructors, when you get to Intro to Post, will be Dave Camilla, just an amazing post audio guy. He runs our dub stage here where we actually mix movies. So we might,
Ginzo, Andy, you got a request to do something with live stream audio.
live streaming.
Audio. So that's what
okay.
I have to say humbly, I haven't had as much experience with that as much as I think Andy has. But I'm, the same principles apply. I just haven't had a chance to do live streaming.
I've done live streaming for a couple years, but the big thing with live streaming for me, what I was doing, I was mixing the praise band at our church. So I was pretty much just mixing music. And the one thing, if you want to learn more about live streaming, I would bone up on IT. Really, when you get right down to it, all I was doing was simply sending my mix out of my console to whatever encoders. So at that point, that's where it's just like, this is out of my wheelhouse. So if you're interested in live streaming, I would look into learning about Dante, which is the industry standard protocol for sending all kinds of video signals and audio. But for us, anything film audio related, I'd say let's go. So if you want to send in any requests, we would love that, and we'll put together another fun episode. So at this point, we're going to say goodnight, but I want you to always make sure you check into the DCBS program page on Full Sail One, and come to these buzzes. They're awesome, and we have so much fun doing them because we normally do our Zoom sessions for our classes, but when we get on a subject that it's our specialty and something that we're very passionate about, it's so much fun for us. So do yourself a favor and really check these out, because these are your instructors who you're going to have at some point in the program. So show them the love, and you'll get so much cool information out of us, because we love to teach, and these are special moments for us that we can really be passionate about what it is we do. So on that note, I think we're gonna say goodnight. Ginzo, do you want to have any words?
I just have one thing I was thinking about that I probably should have mentioned earlier. One thing to keep in mind when you're working on projects is you can get as real awfully technical for every single thing you do. Like, I think I've done it myself, where I listen to something back and went, man, you just feel like I could have done that one better if I just moved the mic a little closer. You can get there and start cherry picking every single little nuance. In the end, you really just have to consider, how's it going to look along with the story? How's it going to sound with the story? If it sounds plausible, it sounds decently natural, you got to sometimes put yourself at ease and go, you know what? It's good enough for the story. It's fine. Just let's move on, or let me learn from it. But I've got to eventually just be happy with what I've got, because if you do that constantly, you'll get yourself, I think, you become disenfranchised. So just remember that you have to serve the story, and that's all parts of the story, not just what was written in the script, but also what was shot, what was, everything that is in line of your viewing and your hearing. That's where you have to serve.
Yeah.
We're there to complement the visual, and the visual is there to complement us. So as long as it works and your client's happy, that's another thing too. You got to remember, if your client's happy with it. I've had situations where I didn't like this, but you know what? Let me have you listen to it. Let me give me your opinion. And they go, no, I'm fine with that. That's totally fine. Let's move on. And you know, if they're happy with it, you got to kind of go, yep, I did my job. So
and no matter what the budget is,
yeah,
when you agree to do a project, you give the best that you can give. You know, you don't just say, well, I'm only making $100, so I'm not gonna give them my full. No, you don't operate that way. You give your best regardless. You know, if Nestor asks me to come out and do a job and he wants to pay me 50 cents, well, maybe for Nestor I'll give him 50 cents, but no, I would treat him the same way as if it were my own project. And just remember this, every day is a new day for you to be better than the day you were before. Same with jobs. Every job is an opportunity to learn, and every time we're out on a job, we learn something new we can put in our bag of tricks to help us solve those problems. So I encourage you all to go make awesome. That's something we would always say to, you know, our students if we loan them gear. Go make awesome.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So with that being said, check out all the DCBS buzzes you can. And again, thank you guys so much. Ginzo and I really appreciate the fact that you came out and supported us. And not just that, you're not just supporting us, you're supporting yourself by taking the initiative to learn about these things that are going to better your filmmaking. I don't want to say your career, you know, because there are so many other things that, you know, play into that, but it'll better your filmmaking.
Yep.
Okay. And that's in the end, that's what it's all about. Okay, everyone, good night. And we will hopefully see you at the next DCBS Buzz event. Thanks, guys, and good night. Have a great evening.
Rock on, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. Good night.